This summer of learning, SHRM is offering 20% off HR essentials, including the SHRM learning system and specialty credentials. Whether you're charting a course towards advancement or leading executive strategy, grab your passport for career growth with code SUMMER25. Learn more at shrm.org/summer25. Offer ends September 1st.
Business leaders know the future is already here. The economy is shifting. Non-humans are entering the workforce. Nothing feels certain. SHRM understands those evolving challenges, both in the workplace and the wider world. In this podcast, we'll bring together authors, researchers, executives, and non-traditional experts to help you take on the challenges others haven't yet considered. Because you don't need to be a futurist, you need actionable insights now. You need to be a Tomorrowist. I'm Jerry Wan. Welcome to Tomorrowist, where we explore the trends shaping the future of work. We're recording live in San Diego during SHRM 25, the world's largest HR conference. Today, we're diving into one of the most critical yet complex topics in the workplace, trust. Trust is a foundation of every successful team, yet it is increasingly fragile in today's world. From hybrid work models to generational shifts and even erosion of trust in institutions, leaders face new challenges in how they build and rebuild trust in the workplace and beyond. Here to guide us through this conversation is Minda Harts, workplace consultant and author of the upcoming book, Talk to Me Nice, the 7 Trust Languages for a Better Workplace. Minda, welcome to Tomorrowist.
Hi, Jerry. Happy to be here.
You've written and spoken about how trust, or lack thereof, shapes people's experiences at work. How do you define trust in a modern workplace context?
I love this question so much because I think in our romantic relationships and our platonic relationships, trust is a non-negotiable, right? You have to have it. But we'll spend 90,000 hours of our lives in a workplace that we don't often think about, oh, there's been an erosion of trust. What can I do about it? That's not a non-negotiable oftentimes. And so Webster's dictionary defines trust as a belief in. And I would like to say that if I had a version of trust, I'd like to say that trust is both a noun and a verb. It's a demonstration of. And I think that if we all keep trust as the main character in the workplace, we would experience a workplace that works for everybody.
And why is that trust such a critical foundation for organizational success far beyond the interpersonal relationships?
Yeah, trust is nice to have, right? But it's also good for the bottom line. And I know a lot of companies are really concerned about, oh, that's all great. Just, work your job. But it's also good for business. And data shows that when trust is present, employees are 21% more productive. Companies experience 50% more retention of their employees, and you experience 40% less burnout as an employee. And so again, if we have all those things at a high mark, then that's good for the bottom line, right? If I feel psychologically safe and I feel like my manager's invested in my success, even if they're making mistakes, but they own it, my trust restarts, right? We all start with a full cup of trust until we start to dump it out.
How do you define or how do you think about trust from a expectation level? Because I think institutions expect their people to trust them off the bat. So it is 100% and it's decreases as time goes, but it may not be the other way around. So what is the balance of expectation of trust and versus it being earned or expected?
Right. I love that you asked this question because it's one of the reasons why I wrote Talk to Me Nice, because I feel like it's less of a trust issue in the workplace, but more of a communication crisis. I expect something of you that you're not aware of that I need, right? So for example, if I know that I need feedback from you as you're my manager, but I'm never getting that, I start to have a low trust in you, but you never knew that I needed feedback, right? So now there's this expectation gap. But what could it look like if I told you, hey, Jerry, every time I finish a project, it's really helpful when I have feedback on a sprint that could help us move this along faster. I understand what you need from me, and that helps me work at my, at a 10. Can we partner in that way next time? You knowing that is better than me kind of you not knowing. And every time I see you on the Zoom call, I'm getting frustrated. Right? And so I think trust is understanding what we need from people and then articulating that so that they can understand what our expectations are.
And I think it's natural for people to want to go above and beyond for somebody that they trust, right? And I think whether it is taking a risk in the decision making at work or going above and beyond, knowing that your manager or your institution will get your back in a sense. And as you mentioned, we think about trust and our ability to have safety, because that's ultimately the goal of trust in our friendships, in our family relationships, in our romantic relationships. But at work, it seems a little bit more binary and not as nuanced there. SHRM research from 2024 shows that amongst U.S. workers who rated their workplace highly on civility and psychological safety, of them, nearly 75% agreed or strongly agreed that they trust their manager, supervisor, or coworkers. That's a good thing and to be expected. In the workplace, where do you see trust breaking down most today? Because while 75% is great, still got a quarter of the working population who doesn't rate it that way. And what contributes to the breaking down of trust you see in the workplace today?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is misunderstanding, miscommunication. And I think especially when we're in hybrid or remote models of work, there's a lot of assumptions that are made, right? For example, if we have a weekly call and I never have my camera on, then you can assume that maybe I'm working, maybe I'm not, right? Or if you are talking to me, then I'm doing something else, right? So that those are erosions of trust that we often don't think about. And I think that avoidance is another one. If I bring something to your attention and you dismiss it, right, I don't feel safe. So there's another erosion of trust. And I think sometimes in the workplace, we think of the grand acts of erosion, but we can show up at 9 a.m., say something or do something intentionally, unintentionally, and erode trust with someone by 9:09, right? But what brings it back to center is owning it. And I think that in our workplaces today, there's not a lot of accountability when we do make a misstep. We are going to make mistakes. We are going to say things. Jerry, I don't think anybody shows up in the workplace and says, how can I erode trust with this person today, right? But our actions sometimes do that. And I think when we do make that mistake, we need a safe place for people to say, hey, this didn't feel good to me, or could we try another way without someone being defensive? And then we get to reset trust.
You've said that language is one of the most overlooked tools in helping people build trust. Help us unpack that idea further.
So I spent 15 years in corporate America. I realized that there was a disconnect between some of my colleagues and my managers. We were all speaking English, right? But we were all speaking a different dialect. And I feel like that is trust. There was this expectation that none of us were really meeting because we weren't talking about it. And I think that one of the things in regards to trust is, how do we speak the same language? If you are in Tokyo, you want trust. If you are in North Dakota, you want trust, right? Every person, regardless of how you identify, when we all know what it feels like when trust is present and when it's gone. And I think we need to recenter to remind each other that we are humans first and employees second, right? And I think sometimes we're running 90,000 miles per hour on we're running 90,000 miles an hour on our jobs that we're not thinking about this decision that I'm going to make. How is this going to impact trust with someone or erode trust? And if we just take a beat for a minute and think about that email that we send off really fast and we CC somebody on it that has no business being CC'd, is that going to enhance trust with the person you send it to or erode trust? And I think if we just take a step back and think, okay, how would I like someone to engage with me? So essentially what I'm asking people to think about is, how do we humanize workplace respect, right?
You've talked about today, and you've written extensively about how different groups of people experience trust, gain trust, give trust, expect it, and all sorts of different things. So I'd like to go into a couple different ways that we can define how different groups of people experience it. And let's start with generationally, right? Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, the upcoming Gen Alpha. There's no shortage of stereotypes and expectations of how different people, judgments rather, right, on how different generations experience things. In terms of trust, what are the key differences there? And talking to leaders, how can they change how they speak to, how they give trust themselves to the different generations? And in particular, as we talk to leaders who may be managing a younger workforce, talk to us about what you've seen in how Gen Z and younger folks experience trust differently.
Yeah, I think one thing is asking our team or asking our colleagues a simple question. What does trust look like to you? And when people ask that question, you're opening up a dialogue to say, you know what, actually, trust looks like when you're a little more transparent with me, when you provide a little more follow through than maybe the last situation. So we're opening up a conversation to establish boundaries in the workplace. And I think that that's something that, whether you're a baby boomer or you're a millennial or, any of the names that we haven't even created yet of generations, right? Each of us wants to be able to be seen, heard, and valued. And that all looks different. You think about Gary Chapman's The 5 Love Languages, right? Once we kind of uncovered, just because I show you acts of service, actually you need words of affirmation from me. And it's similar to the workplace. I may be showing you that, you can have autonomy, so I never give you feedback, but actually you need that from me. And I think that boomers need it, Gen X needs it, and beyond. But again, it's asking the right questions. What do you need from me? So if I am a boomer and my leadership is saying everyone is everyone belongs here, that we're committed to everybody's success, but I see that the next 10 hires have been everyone that's a millennial, right? What does that signal to me about safety as a boomer? Do I have a career here? Do I have a future here? Or do I have to be worried, even though they said one thing, but it's demonstrated another? So again, I think we have to understand what does good look like for people. And that requires building relationships and understanding, again, that everyone's human. They want to do their best work, but we need to be able to have conversations. So again, another avenue of trust, even if we say that inclusivity is important, but we have not demonstrated that, how do we restore trust that's eroded is saying, I know you might have noticed that the last 5 hires have been millennials. We are committed to this, and we're going to make sure, and here's what we're doing to fix that. That isn't signals to me as a boomer, okay, I was side-eyeing the CEO at first, but now I know that I can keep working here because they've acknowledged it. And I think, again, it's just that avoidance or that conflict avoidant behavior just erodes trust every time.
I think when you started out with this example of the comparison of how we think about trust in interpersonal relationships versus work, which feels a little bit more institutional. However, work is just a collection of human relationships, right? And if you go through your romantic relationship with your partner, just assuming everything and projecting your own beliefs about what trust looks like, what all these things look like, it's not going to be a good relationship. And yet at work, sometimes I think we do that a little too much. And so you're very yet simple, yet refreshing. Just ask, right? Just ask the other person how they define it. And it's supposed to be complicated, right? It's supposed to be nuanced and it's supposed to be gray, because we can define diversity in a lot of different metrics, and generationally is how we're talking about it right now. But if you apply that to the matrix of how so many people identify differently, it's supposed to be complicated. And as a good leader or as a successful leader, our job is to make sure that we meet every one of our people where they are, or at least do our best effort to. So I think, it seems like a very simple answer, right? Just ask them, right? And so we've seen a decrease in trust towards institutions, whether they be academic institutions or governments. And I think not only does the data show that, people have experienced it ourselves, right? And I think our audience will resonate with that statement. How does that bleed into the workplace? And then how do we reverse that trend so that people don't have don't take their mistrust of governments and institutions into the workplace and the relationships there?
Right. I think that it's part of trust is not sweeping anything under the rug, right? So we know that many companies are going to experience reorganizations, layoffs, maybe even furloughs, or maybe some companies are experiencing tariffs, et cetera, all kinds of things. And so I think what happens is when we pretend that there's nothing to see here, right? When we sweep things under the rug, right? When we had a team retreat last week and now there was a layoff at 9 a.m. and now everybody's pretending that there's nothing has happened. Let's do our next one-on-one. I think those are ways that we reinforce that trust isn't important, right? And again, it's not about being perfect in a workplace, but it's understanding that let's humanize the experiences of all of our employees. Because again, we talked about the data. When trust is present, we're more productive. Retention is better, right? Less burnout. And so what would it look like? We know what it looks like when we sweep everything under the rug. What would it look like to have a conversation? One of the languages I write about is transparency. Transparency is not telling everything, telling all your business, right? Showing everybody the reports. But transparency is also saying, I know a lot has been going on. I know there's a lot of polarizing conversations and things taking place. If you have any questions, feel free to, I have an open door, right? Let's talk about it. I think one of the myths about transparency is also, I have to tell you everything, right? Yeah, the layoff's coming. You're not going to be working here, all of those things. But also transparency is saying, I don't know. And when I have that information, I'll get back to you. But it's also, again, humanizing. I'm asking all of us to think about what it's like to sit on that other side of the table again, right? Because it takes a lot of courage for someone to come to you and say, there is an erosion of trust, right? And I hope that through the book that I'm giving language, not to go to someone and say, hey, I don't trust you anymore, Jerry, but saying through these languages, here's what I need. Can we partner to success? Because if trust can be broken, it can be rebuilt.
The simple phrase, I don't know, is something that leaders don't say enough. because as people who are expected to know the answer, or we want to perceive ourselves to be people who know the answers to everything, it sometimes feels like a weakness, right? I don't know. I am incomplete. But when you tell somebody I don't know, it actually does the opposite. It builds that trust because one is saying, hey, let's figure it out together. I will get that answer for you. And also it humanizes it, right? Hey, I'm not supposed to know everything. And the world is changing so quickly. And so, with so much going on in the world and in our workplaces, it is expected that at some point a leader might lose trust, whether it is through unexpected bad news or a change in the course or strategy. Once a leader has lost that trust, what can they do to earn that trust from their people?
I mentioned at the top of our conversation that trust is a noun and a verb, right? And it's the consistent actions. So if we did make a misstep, what does it look like to go back and say, hey, I made this decision based off of information I had a month ago. Things have changed, and I wanted to bring that back to your attention. And I think that sits well. It like calms the nervous system if you're on the receiving end of that, right? As opposed to, oh, they're just continuously eroding trust. And is this a place that I can feel safe? So I think ownership and accountability is one of the first steps.
Let's talk about how technology impacts trust. We're about 5 years out from the pandemic, but yet it's shifted how we work. Most of it is virtual. There's hybrid environments. We are a more global workforce than we were before. And the way that AI is impacting the way that we communicate, the way that we produce content, it can also have an interesting impact on how we trust each other of, hey, did you actually write this email? Or we see that way too often in the news, right? How does that impact trust, and how can leaders get ahead of making sure that the risks of losing trust because of technological impact is hemmed or is at least buffered to a degree?
Yeah, again, I think it's having more honest conversations and open dialogue and staying connected to your team. If you're on my team and I have a team of 5 and maybe one person says, oh, I trust Minda with everything, but does everybody feel that way, right? Or am I micromanaging other people, or am I not offering flexible scheduling for everyone? And so I think we have to open up that communication because, again, what one person might need from me may have a different trust language than somebody else, but that requires that question that we talked about. What does trust look like to you? What do you need from me to do your best work? And I think that helps, and I think it solves the problem of me assuming that you're watching Netflix all day because, you're not responding right away to my Microsoft Teams. And I think instead of assuming that, you haven't responded in 2 hours, I don't approach you from a place of accusation, right? I'm going to say, hey, I've been trying to get a hold of you. Is everything okay? Instead of, are you out at the beach? Right? So I think it's the language. Again, how do we talk to each other nice with humanity, dignity, and respect?
When as you were answering, I think we've all seen these videos of people parodying, right? The guy at the golf course with the green screen behind, or somebody who invented the never stopping mouse mover, right? To make sure that that light is green all the time. Share with us some ways that technology can actually help build trust or to accelerate trust building between workplace people.
I actually think this is an opportunity for people, again, to stay connected in ways that we couldn't before. I know, for example, when I was in my 9 to 5, I might not have had access to senior leaders in the same ways that I get to have access in a virtual environment, right? And it gives me an opportunity to chime into important conversations and show my thought leadership on certain matters. And I think that it opens up opportunities for everyone to participate in the workplace in a different way. And it helps kind of level the playing field in terms of who gets to attend meetings, right? Who has a voice? Because even if I don't get to speak, I have the chat, right? So I can chime in. And so I'm demonstrating that I'm actively involved and I want more out of my career. And I think that we don't have to look at remote work as a negative, right? And that we still could build really impactful relationships because people are still getting promoted even in a hybrid work environment.
Talk to us about sort of the strategies that leaders can use and also employees can leverage with their leaders. Continue to hear about the expectations of you must come back to home office if you want to get promoted, or the lack of opportunities for people who still want to participate in virtual or hybrid engagements. How can we continue to build the same level of trust? Is that possible and still maintain a flexible working arrangement for many people who actually need that?
Right. So I think The answer is yes. And again, I think that part of this is how do we communicate that to each other? So if I'm a leader and I say, hey, everybody get back to work on Monday, we have to take a step back and say, is that feasible for every single person, right? And understanding that, have I even opened up the space for someone to feel safe enough to come and tell me that they've been caretaking for an elderly parent for the last, 3 years, and coming back to the office 5 days a week isn't as viable, right? Could we work toward 1 day a week and go from there? But if I'm already shutting it down that you don't want to work anymore, right? Nobody wants to work anymore, or having these accusations, then it shuts down the conversation and it erodes trust from the start. What do we say? Hey, I don't have all the answers. And it's not that I don't think anybody wants to work anymore, but we have this real estate and we really need everybody to get back to work. And here's the reason why. But let's talk about what that looks like so that we have a seamless transition. That feels better to people than, it's Friday, get back to work on Monday, and you've already moved to Florida during the pandemic, right? So again, we have to humanize people's experiences and say, is this, what I'm about to say, is it going to enhance trust or erode trust? And that's a choice.
I think one simple sort of mindset we can practice is when we feel that trust is not being given to us, we want the opposite party or the opposite person to give us the most benefit of doubt. I know maybe I lost my phone or my internet went out, but sometimes when it's the other way around, we as human beings tend to go to the worst case scenario of, oh, they're probably at the beach, or, oh, there he goes again, And so I think just practicing, and that's practicing empathy at some point, right? Minda, it's been wonderful. Congratulations on your fourth book. It's exciting to be your friend and have a close upfront seat as you've written your journey. And I think trust is the next topic that I think is going to be really instrumental in helping us navigate the workplace. As we wrap here, what is the one thing that leaders can do today to help build better trust for tomorrow?
Well, I might sound like a broken record, Jerry, but I think we have to just start with this decision that I'm about to make, or this behavior or this conversation, is it going to enhance trust or erode trust? And if it's going to erode, even unintentionally, how can I approach this situation better to make that person feel more safe? And then also allow them space to be able to give me feedback on that, because trust is a two-way street.
Minda Harts, author of the upcoming book, Talk to Me Nice. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe to Tomorrowist wherever you get your podcast. We also publish a weekly newsletter with in-depth articles and the latest SHRM research to help keep you in the know about the trends shaping the future of work. You can subscribe and find all of our episodes on our website at shrm.org/Tomorrowist. Thanks for listening. And remember, the workplace is changing rapidly. You don't have to be a futurist, be a Tomorrowist.
Unlock 20% off SHRM educational programs this summer of learning. Use code SUMMER25 and take off in your HR career. Learn more at shrm.org/summer25. Offer ends September 1st.
SHRM.